Welcome everybody to the March 2022 members meeting. To start us off, I would like to pass it over to our colleague, Sister Pat Daly, to do the opening reflection.
Thank you, Rob. We're going to, this morning, our reflection is going to be a combination of reflecting on this image of one of the earliest moments in our the history of the cosmos. We're going to have bits and pieces of some contemplative silence, also listen to the Word of God, and then I'll offer a prayer at the end. So I would just invite you to take a deep breath and center yourself. And to gaze on this image for a moment. And welcome this image of the creative energy of our God. 13.8 billion years ago. And so only relatively recently, 450 million years ago, our planet came into creation. And as the universe continues to expand, our planet continues to move. So we gather today as people who have been brought together at this time on this planet. We gather this week as we celebrate this amazing moment 50 years ago that brought faith communities together to be probably the most remarkable and effective interfaith organization that the earth has known. We continue to see the creative energy, the Spirit of God, moving us here at ICCR, moving each individual here at ICCR. It's a sacred call for every single one of us. For those who've been around for decades, and for those who are new to this work. Let us hear from the Hebrew scriptures as Courtney will reflect for us.
From the prophet Isaiah, the Spirit of the Lord Yahweh is upon me, because Yahweh anointed me and has sent me, that I shall proclaim good news to the poor, and I shall bind up the broken hearts, and I shall proclaim freedom to the captives and release to the prisoners the word of God. Amen.
Amen. So let us just take a few minutes to sit in silence, reflecting on this image, reflecting on how the Spirit of the Lord continues to anoint us to relieve the suffering. So let us pray. Gracious God, Creator God, bless us as we gather this day and this week. Help us to discern the next steps in our work, the next steps as an ICCR community. And bless us as we celebrate, we finally celebrate 50 years of keeping the faith. Blessings all. Rob, I think I gave you half a minute back.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Pat and Courtney, for that inspiring reflection to really get us started off right this week. On behalf of the Board of Directors of ICCR, I would like to again welcome everyone to this members meeting. My name is Rob Four, and in my day job, I am the Director of Faith-Based Investing and Corporate Engagement for the Presbyterian Church USA. And I also have the distinct honor and privilege to serve as chair of the ICCR Board of Directors. And I'd first like to start out by thanking the ICCR staff who have worked so diligently to make this week happen and make the gala later this week also happen, and just really appreciate your great work. And I'd also like to thank the board of directors who have been working very hard as well. And finally, to all of you, to all the members who I know have also been working hard, and for you taking the time this week to really come to this important conference and celebrate this milestone for ICCR. So this week, ICCR at 50. During this week, we'll have the opportunity to celebrate ICCR's history and look to the future. This has been a good year for ICCR, and it's also been a hard year. The COVID-19 pandemic, climate crisis, economic inequality, systemic racism, exploitation of workers, just to name a few. And more recently, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Our hearts and minds, thoughts and prayers go out to all whose lives have been affected by this needless conflict and all the other aforementioned issues. With all of these issues, the ICCR community continues to respond. Some of these issues have been with us for many years, while others have emerged more recently. A couple months ago, I was asked, the ICCR community is dealing with so many issues, some of which seem so intractable. How do you keep doing it year in and year out? And my immediate gut response was, well, we have each other. We do this work in community, and specifically a community that has affirmed that it is inspired by faith and committed to action. For me, community, or the concept that I am not alone, is really a cornerstone of my own faith. And as we celebrate the past 50 years and look ahead to the next 50, this ICCR community continues to give me hope, and it is an honor to be a part of it. At our Assembly of Members meeting last fall, we adopted new priorities after going through a robust 1.5-year process. The implementation for these new priorities is currently in process. And while Josh will touch on these with more detail during his CEO report, I wanted to take a minute to lift up some of the work on the implementation of one of the priority issues in particular, that is racial justice. Through the prioritization process of 2020 and 2021, ICCR members identified racial justice as a priority for ICCR. For the ICCR community, racial justice cannot just be another program area. Instead, racial justice needs to be integrated into our understanding of everything that we do. To do this work thoughtfully and with integrity, we need to examine who we are as a community and to understand where our own practices need to change. This means that we will be engaging in an ongoing process of self-reflection, training, and capacity building, which will strengthen the ways we engage with companies on racial equity and justice. Nadir Narayan, ICCR Senior Program Director for Strategic Initiatives, has also spoken with many of you to learn more about your experiences both within and hopes for ICCR. Key ICCR staff have just begun a workshop on advancing racial justice through the Interaction Institution for Social Change to help design and implement internal process and infrastructure. And we will shortly hire a consultant to conduct an internal assessment so we can better understand our strengths and areas for growth. I know that we are all committed as the ICCR community to engaging in this crucial process of reflection and commitment to ensure that racial justice is not just part of our history, but is core to the road ahead. Finally, as I already mentioned, we are in an important time within the life of ICCR as we celebrate our 50th anniversary. It is a time to honor and celebrate the past and to look with hope towards the future. How do we envision the next 50 years of ICCR? What does it mean to be inspired by faith, committed to action? How do we best articulate our common values and community practices? We will begin to discuss these important questions starting today during a breakout session, which Board Vice Chair Laura Krause will lead us through a little later on in the agenda. The board is excited to engage the ICCR community in these important conversations, and we look forward to co-creating the future of ICCR with all of you. Thank you very much. And as it is our tradition, I would like to invite anybody who is new to ICCR, whether it's your institution is new to ICCR or this is your first members meeting, to please take yourself off mute and introduce yourself by saying your name and your institution. So I would like to invite again anybody who is new to ICCR to please introduce themselves.
Hi, good morning. My name is Courtney Wicks, and I am the Executive Director of Investor Advocates for Social Justice. And I am really thrilled to be here this morning.
Welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Greg Estes. I am representing Augustine Asset Management. I'm a portfolio manager, and I'm honored to be here.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Lizette Cooper. I'm Vice Chair of Fiduciary Trust International. So I'm here representing Fiduciary Trust, and I'm also here as another new member, I'm chair of Wisdom Lotus Foundation.
Thank
So
you.
a faith-based organization as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any others who would like to be introduced? Okay, hearing none, welcome to our new members, and we will all look forward to being together in person at some point in the future, but unfortunately that is not today. But hopefully you can feel the warmth of the ICCR community welcoming you into this community. Okay, next on our agenda, I would like to invite our treasurer, Jeff Perkins, to give us a financial report.
Great, thank you, Rob. Excuse me. Good morning. It's great to see everyone. I'm Jeff Perkins, the Executive Director at Friends Fiduciary, and currently serve ICCR as treasurer. And there's nothing like a rousing financial report to start your day. So here we go. But before I start a review of the unaudited financials, which staff will be finalizing in the next several weeks, and then the independent auditors will begin their review. But before we jump to that, I want to say a bit about the financial management process at ICCR. We have a member finance committee that works with staff and reports to the board. Those hardworking committee members are sisters Barbara Ayers and Susan Mikos, Mark Regier, Charles Buck, Jake Barnett, Frank Sherman, and me. We're fortunate to have a CEO who is very good at managing expenses as well as securing grants to fund ICCR's programs. Josh is ably supported in the financial management by Andreen Marshall, our Director of Finance and Administration, who has been on board now just over a year. So Asaba, if you could go to the first slide, please. 2021, as you all know, continued to feel the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. However, it was a very strong year financially for ICCR. What you have before you are the 2021 pre-audit, so these are not yet audited, pre-audit final numbers for 2021, as well as a column for the 2022 budget. And I'm gonna review the high points of these so that everyone understands where the organization is financially. Member dues, which is a key revenue item for us, not only remained strong, but exceeded budget. And I should just orient folks, the first column is the actual results. The second column is the 2021 budget. And then the third column is a variance. So whether we were over or under budget. So member dues remain strong. They exceeded budget due primarily to associate and faith-based members, resulting from both new members and members upgrading. So shout out to those new members and to those increasing their involvement in and support of ICCR. Special event and contributions were also strong for the year, with an exceptional $672,000 raised for the 50th anniversary, with another $80,000 coming in from companies, individuals, and organizations making contributions to support our collective work. So also a shout out to all those members who contributed to the 50th anniversary through sponsorships. And thanks to staff, board, and members who solicited sponsorships and contributions. This was all important in making this year and the special event a success. On a bottom line, on a total revenue basis, we exceeded budget by $265,000 for those items as a result of those items I just highlighted. On the expense side of the ledger, further down on the sheet, Expenses came in 179,000 below budget. And there were several major contributing factors. First of which, as I noted, was the continuing pandemic. This meant that we had to move the 50th anniversary celebration from last fall to this week. And rather than in person, which was originally budgeted, to a virtual event. This means we spent 84,000 less than budgeted, some of which will hit in 2022 this year. The budget also assumes staff would be traveling, participating in conferences and events in person. Again, travel was very limited, so that also resulted in savings of approximately 48,000. And finally, personnel costs came in less than budget due to delays in hiring staff. So both of these factors resulted in a very positive bottom line for the year, with net operating income coming in at about 425,000 to the good. This is great in our 50th anniversary year. One of the outcomes of this is this positive result, combined with several of the past years, means that for the first time, ICCR will be in a position to establish an operating reserve. In fact, the Finance Committee recommended and the board approved designating funds equivalent to 3 months of personnel costs as an operating reserve. This is really important for the health, stability, and future of our organization. And it's fortuitous that we're able to do this in our 50th anniversary year. On 2021, we're still finalizing the balance sheet. That's the last piece of the puzzle before having the auditors come in. But I can note a couple of key items. One, the balance sheet is strong. We're in a very strong cash position with about 2 million in cash as some of our funders pay up front for multi-year grants. So that's been helpful. And our endowment investments at 12/31/2021 had a market value of 1.8 million. So again, strong balance sheet as well as strong operating results for the year. I'll now give a very brief update on 2022. Again, the 2022 budget is the far right column here on your sheet. We're budgeting 3.39 million in revenue. So revenue is budgeted to increase, and 3.43 million in expense, resulting in a deficit budget of 40,000 for the year. The board was comfortable the board was comfortable approving a deficit budget because approximately 66,000 of expenses that had been planned in 2021 will actually be spent in 2022. These expenses were for the 50th anniversary, which I mentioned earlier, and funds for redoing the website, which was postponed from last year, 2021, and will be completed in the current year, 2022. So I have another page of numbers, which I'd like to share with you all today. Asaba, if you could advance the slide, please. This slide shows comparative income statements for the unrestricted fund from 2018 to 2020. These numbers are from those respective audits with some minor reformatting for comparability across the years. And really don't want to throw too many numbers at you, but there are a couple of trends that are important for us to understand about our organization. So looking at member dues, you can see member dues declined not only in absolute terms, but also as a percent of total revenue. However, if you remember in 2021, we've seen that they've started to increase again with the addition of new associate and faith-based members. So that recent reversal of the trend that had been occurring is a good thing. And kudos to staff and members who are out helping to advance our membership. Grants, as you can see, as the second line, represents 1/3 of our revenue, which has increased over time. This increase has allowed ICCR to expand our programs and staffing to support members in our work and to address pressing issues. Of course, grant funding can vary over time, frankly, as can any revenue source. And so this is another reason why it's really beneficial to be in a position to be able to establish an operating reserve, to be able to see the organization through future potential challenging times. You may note that the endowment draw changed, went down from 2019 to 2020. That reflects at the time in 2018, 2019, an increase in the spending rate from 4% to 7%. The board approved this along with member contributions to help support the new member database. That database was seen as an investment in the future of ICCR, and indeed it has been. You can see we returned to that 4% rate in 2020 as well as 2021. I would just note, I mentioned that at the end of 2021, the endowment stood at 1.7 million. Back at the end of 2017, so prior to going into 2018, it stood at 1.4 million. So you can see, even with the change, the temporary change in spending rate, the endowment has increased nicely over time. From an expense standpoint, you can see that personnel costs are by far the lion's share of expenses, ranging from 75 to 81% of total expenses. This shouldn't surprise any of us. We have a great hardworking staff that has increased over time. And this is indicative of the extensive program work being done by members and supported by staff to engage companies on the most important concerns of our days. So let me stop there and see if there are any questions. See if folks have a question and want to put that in the chat. Happy to answer that, and then we'll wrap up this riveting report. Great. I'm not seeing any questions. Great. So one question is, what level of operating reserve has the board approved? The operating reserve has been targeted at 3 months of payroll costs, so payroll and benefits, which again, as noted in the results, are the lion's share of our expenses. So frankly, the board and everyone else would have been a lot less nervous had we had an operating reserve going into the pandemic in 2020. Fortunately, we were helped by the PPP loan, but you know, uncertainties abound into the future. All right, let's see. Question about legal fees. The legal fees for the SEC lawsuit are not included in these numbers. Those are a simple pass-through and accounted for separately. So the legal expenses are for the increased work, and those who are involved in the engagement work know that there have been more SEC challenges, and we have certainly been successful on a number of those. I believe Hershey just recently had a successful the filers with Hershey had a successful result. Some of the anti-competitive practices proposals also were upheld by the SEC, which is great. How many new positions are in the salary line for 2022, which is increasing? Josh, can you
Yeah, I
take
can
that one?
speak. I can speak to that. Thanks, Jeff, for that presentation. So in addition to existing staff, that budget includes 3 staff lines. So one that currently we're hiring for. One is the replacement of David's position, and I'll talk about that in my report, the program director for the work on supply chains. The other is an associate program director to support the work that Nadira is building out under the new set of priorities. And the third is for a program associate to support the work on banks and climate.
Great, thanks, Josh. One other question is, at some point, can we get a report on grant source and amount? I can tell you that the Finance Committee looks at that very closely, and at each of its meetings receives a full listing of the grants supporting the organization, as does the board. We hadn't occurred to me to share that with members, but that's certainly information we can provide. In some cases, the funders want to remain anonymous, but that's rarely the case. So I think that's something that we can share in the future. It's a complicated report because, as I indicated, many of these grants are multi-year, supporting programs over time, which is exactly, frankly, what we want. So hopefully that covers that question. Let me see. So for 2021, is a grant income on a cash basis or accrual? So some of the grant income is for future years. So on the 2021 operating results that we showed, that $1 million+ in grants for 2021, those are grant funds that will be applied towards and can be applied towards 2021 expenses. So that does not include funding for 2022 work and expenses, even though we might have already received the grant from the funder. Hopefully that answers that question. So I think I'm about at time here, Rob. In closing, I would echo the sentiment with which I started. ICCR at its 50th anniversary is financially strong and well-positioned to keep doing our work in the world as we continue to be inspired by faith and committed to action. I want to thank all of you for your involvement with this great information. I'm proud to be associated with it. And that ends my report. I believe nominating committee is next up on the agenda. So I will turn it over to our amazing Katie McCloskey.
Why, thank you, amazing Jeff Perkins. I am Katie McCloskey with Mercy Investment Services, and I happen to chair the nominating committee. It's a great committee. It includes Julie Tanner, Chris Meyer, Rob Four, Anna Falkenberg, Laura Krause, and we especially want to thank Ethel Howley, who after many years of service is rolling off the committee due to a term limit. So thanks to you, Ethel. The nominating committee materials, or the nominating materials, have been released for the 2022 elections, which will happen at our meeting in September. Nominations will be accepted until May 31st. There will be 5 directors up for election. One sitting director will have completed three year full terms in Pat Zarega. So thank you for all your service, Pat. And the rest are eligible for re-election. The board is made up of at least 10 faith-based members, at most 3 associate members, and at most 2 at-large members who may be either affiliated with ICCR at this time or may be attracted to the organization as a director for other reasons. We encourage you to use the nominating form to consider people for inclusion on the board. We especially encourage you to use the form to not only consider yourself, but other people within your organization or at other ICCR affiliated organizations that might increase the diversity, talent, or skills of the ICCR board. So it doesn't necessarily need to be the familiar faces that we see around this table. The nominating committee looks forward to your nomination by, again, May 31st. And then it will sort of bring our findings to the board ahead of its July meeting. After that, the board will present a draft slate to the membership. And that election on that slate will occur in September. So thank you very much for considering your availability and for others, and for all of the volunteer hours and blood, sweat, and tears that and joy that board directors experience on the ICCR board. That ends my report. I don't know if there are any questions, but if not, I will kick it to Josh. Oh, what skills experience is the board especially looking for? Thanks, Frank. This year, as always, the board is always looking for financial skills within board directors, for diversity in terms of racial, gender, faith-based, faith aligned, so professional versus avowed people. And we are also always looking for lawyerly skills, those who have law skills within the membership. And so that is not a new set of criteria that the board looks for. Also to note, though, that the board has updated its expectation of membership. So that document that is part of the materials that you've seen go forward is new. And so that is really thanks, I think, to Tim Brennan, who spearheaded that idea of what it means to be a director on the board of ICCR. Did I miss any questions? Nope, I think that's it. So thanks very much, and I will kick it over to Josh.
Okay.
Josh,
Still
are you
muted,
muted?
Josh.
Josh.
Okay. Got it. Hi, folks. Thank you for that, Katie. And a big welcome to ICCR members. It's great to see all of you on Zoom. Thanks to everyone for coming out virtually in big numbers, as always. We had a tough choice in late January about whether or not to hold the conference and gala in person or virtually. At the time, we heard a lot of messages of concern from members about traveling to New York City as the Omicron wave was peaking. And we regret so much that we're not able to be in person this week. Hopefully, we made the right decision under the circumstances. We're really hoping and planning that our fall conference scheduled for the last week in September will be in person. We'll also have our fall special event that week. And if we're in person, we're hoping we can have a big party with ICCR members to make up for being virtual this week. We have the venue that we were going to use for the gala already booked. So hopefully we can all get together in person this fall and have a party. It would be really nice to see everybody after so long. In our 50th year, it's such an honor to be leading such a vital organization, inspired by faith, committed to action, with our long track record of impact and leadership guided by the shared values that bring us together as a community. Looking at the community of people gathered here virtually, I think of how much I've learned from each of you and how much each of you has contributed to make ICCR's work possible. and how much potential we have as a community to make a difference for people and planet as we head into our next 50 years. It's been an incredibly trying time in the world in so many ways. I'm inspired that the ICCR community has remained strong through all of this, through the pandemic and so many other challenges, and that our members and staff have been so active and have continued to have such an impact in our shared work to promote equity and justice for people and communities and sustainability for the planet. After so many years, ICCR is still seen more than ever as the moral voice within the investor community. ICCR membership continues to grow, as do the partnerships that we have with so many stakeholder allies that really ground our work. On behalf of all of us, I want to warmly welcome our new members to ICCR, and again, hope that we can all meet you in person later this year. I want to give a big shout out to our outstanding staff who have been working so hard to run this organization and to deliver for members, and have clearly demonstrated their strong commitment to our mission and to the organization. In particular here, I want to recognize Isaba Hawk from our staff, who's done such a great job coordinating all the disparate pieces for this conference. So thank you, Isaba. I also want to thank our terrific board for their commitment as well, as they've been a much needed bedrock of support. Their seriousness of purpose about the governance of this organization provides such a strong foundation for us. As always, we continue to be inspired and energized by ICCR's members, who are the heart and soul of all that we accomplish as an organization. More than ever, corporations need to hear the message that ICCR members bring, that we must commit to a more just and sustainable world. Our members continue, no matter the obstacles, to rise to meet these challenges. We have several newer staff members who I want to point out, who have joined since our last members meeting in October of last year. These include Mary Hebert and Jad Ben Hallam, who are working as program associates on the climate team, and Megan Barrera, who's a program associate with the Investor Alliance for Human Rights. And again, hopefully you'll get a chance to meet them in person in the fall. We're also really excited that David Schilling has taken on a new role at ICCR as a part-time senior advisor. We'll continue to be able to benefit from David's rich experience as he tackles his new role. We're also thrilled that David will be receiving the ICCR Legacy Award after 27 years of service at ICCR. David, it's such a privilege to work with you as always. There's a few things that I want to highlight before we move on in the program. Once again, it's been a very active proxy season so far for ICCR members, with over 465 resolutions filed by ICCR members so far this proxy season across so many critical issues. And so far as well, we've been doing well at the SEC and warding off no action challenges. We're gonna have a session this afternoon with Beth Young and Sanford Lewis to drill down into the current thinking at the SEC on the no action process and how it's impacted the resolutions that we file. And we're grateful to Beth and Sanford for the strong legal support that they provide for us at the SEC. We're so proud of ICCR members who are still on the leading edge, pushing so many important issues as first movers that eventually get more and more support from mainstream investors. As most of you know, we filed a lawsuit last year against the SEC, along with As You Sow and Jim McRitchie, to try and vacate rule changes to Rule 14A8 that were promulgated under the prior administration. These rules, of course, put up a number of significant barriers to filing shareholder resolutions on the many issues that we file on. We submitted a summary, after filing a complaint last June, we submitted a summary judgment motion last September, asking the court to rule in our favor. We were hoping to have a decision by now, but the court has postponed a status hearing scheduled that had been scheduled in early March until late May. So we likely won't have a decision until then. We'll definitely keep everyone posted. And thanks again to the many members who contributed funds towards the filing of this important litigation. Many of you also know that last week, the SEC issued a sweeping proposed rule on climate disclosure, which presents a huge opportunity for investors to get mandatory disclosure on climate risks, something that ICCR members have been pressing companies for on a voluntary basis for so many years. ICCR will be putting in an extensive comment on the rule, and we'll also be sending out to members next week talking points, and in the weeks that come, talking points in a toolkit that will help members to put in your own comments. As the final rule is likely to face a legal challenge from trade associations, it's critical that our community shows strong support for this important rulemaking. as well as adds commentary on how it can be improved. The SEC will also be releasing a proposed rule on human capital management disclosure this spring, and ICCR will also be commenting on this rule and getting information out to members. So an important next few months on disclosure at the SEC. In early March, we had a successful virtual convening of the chief investment officers and investment decision makers from a cross-section of our faith-based members for the purpose of building community and to explore what is unique about faith-based investing and what some of the challenges and opportunities are. David Wood and Vonda Brunsting from the Initiative for Responsible Investment facilitated the meeting and did a series of more than 20 interviews prior to our convening to help inform the conversation. And many thanks to Seher Khalik from staff, who did much of the organizing at the staff level. There was a lot of enthusiasm among the group to have a follow-up convening, hopefully in person, and we'll be releasing more information to the membership about this. We're also, as Rob referenced, we're continuing, of course, to work on the implementation of the member priorities. Rob discussed all that we're doing to lay the groundwork for the work on racial equity, and many thanks to Nadira for her efforts in reaching out to so many members to get your perspectives. Nadira is also meeting with members and allies to develop a new working group and leadership teams in the worker rights area, as well as engaging with members to transition her existing program areas. On the supply chains work, David is meeting with members and allies to help build out that program area. And as I mentioned earlier, we've posted for David's replacement and are searching for a program director to run that program area. We're also pulling together an advisory group of board, staff, and members to help advise on the implementation of the priorities. As always, we'll be having member strategy sessions the third week in June, and we'll be in touch with the membership soon with more details on that. I want to turn for a moment to the shareholder exchange. Over the last 3 years, we've been continuing to build out the functionality of ICCR's shareholder exchange in close consultation with members, with the goal of improving coordination and collaboration within the coalition, capturing our members' shareholder engagement activities and their outcomes in order to inform strategy and enhance our reporting on the impact achieved. In 2020, for example, we integrated into the ShareX 7 external corporate benchmarks that corresponded closely with our members' engagement priorities. In 2021, we launched company report cards for each of the over 1,800 companies in ShareX. Each of these company report cards capture member outreach with that company across the many issues that we engage on, whether it be through resolutions, dialogues, or letters, and records the impact of this shareholder engagement captured in ShareX on one dashboard. Also in 2021, we launched our engagement trackers, which track members' engagement with one company on one issue over time, allowing us to see on a single dashboard how investor asks within this engagement have evolved over time, how the no action process and larger investor support have shaped these asks, and how the company response to these asks has changed or not over the years. Now in 2022, I'm pleased to announce that we're hoping to develop and launch a new feature for the ShareX, a member reporting tracker that will allow members to view on one dashboard all their shareholder engagement activities, dialogues, resolutions, and letters, and the outcomes of these activities as captured in ShareX. These trackers will offer direct reporting benefit to members, and we expect to roll these out for faith-based and associate members in the second half of this year. I'd like to thank all of the members who've helped to inform the development of this upcoming feature, as well as the many members of staff led by Seher Khalik, Meg Jones-Montero, Julie Wakety, and others who have worked so hard to further develop the ShareX. Well, in closing, we have a great conference planned for this week with an exciting agenda and a wide variety of content on capacity building, strategy, and learning about issues. And thanks to so many of the members who have put together member-led sessions this week. We're so excited about the 50th anniversary gala on Thursday night. We have a great program, and many thanks to ICCR staff, particularly Susanna McDermott, Jana Hinkinen, Kyle Chesborough, and others for their hard work in pulling this event together. We're especially excited to be honoring our founding members on Thursday who were here at ICCR at the very beginning 50 years ago. And if anyone here who's on the call hasn't registered yet, it's definitely not too late, so please do register. There's a really excellent program planned. I have so much more to say, but I'm going to close here as there's a lot on the agenda. It's really a big honor to lead ICCR and to be a part of this unique and committed community of members. This organization and its membership has done such impressive and groundbreaking work for the last 50 years, and together we'll rise to meet the challenges for the next 50. So thank you so much. And unless there are any questions, I'll pass it now over to Laura Krause.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Did anyone have any questions? Okay, we do have a big agenda, so I'm going to go forward into what I think will be a really rich conversation for us, and so appropriate in our 50th year. But really, this is a time where we're going to invite you to have a conversation and a celebration about who we are as an ICCR community. So we invite you to go into this with appreciative inquiry. It strikes us that especially after 2 years apart, or not apart, but on Zoom, it's very, very different. It's funny, I read this quote by Brene Brown this morning, and it made me think of this. And she says, she defines connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from relationships. And I immediately reflected back to my first time walking into the Interfaith Center and being with this amazing group of people. And always, I think we all go into new situations with a little bit of nervousness and trepidation perhaps. And I was so struck immediately by the connectedness of this community, how welcomed I felt, how appreciated I felt, how I could ask any question in the world and nobody thought it was dumb. It was just such a powerful connection to a group of people like I'd never experienced before. And I still feel that today, but it's been very different on Zoom. And I think we all appreciate that when we are in the room together, it's much easier to know who we're in the room with. Right now, we may be asking ourselves, who are we in the room with? Who are all these other people? Do I really know them? Have I gotten to know them? We're a bigger tent now. We're a bigger organization. And I think we see, as we've gone through these past 2 very incredible years, that we all express values differently. We have different ways of doing things. And there's so many strengths and so much richness here. So we're going to invite you to go into small breakout groups to talk about this. I'm going to give you 30 minutes. We ask you to introduce yourselves in the breakouts and then spend about the first 15 minutes talking about who you are and what brings you and your organization to ICCR, a community whose motto is inspired by faith and committed to action. So with that in mind, who are you and what brings you and your organization here? Then after we wrap up that discussion, and I think we will be getting sort of a notification that that is wrapping up, then we're going to ask you to think about what are 6 values that you associate with ICCR. And we ask you to think about, 1 or 2 word values. Take 2 minutes, in between these 2 exercises to think about that. Let the first exercise settle into your bones and your heart. And then think about those 6 values and then share out with them. We will have an ICCR staff person, bless you all for all that you do, taking notes. And then we will be assimilating those as a board and kind of looking at all the information, and we'll find some appropriate way of sharing afterwards, and looking into the future and thinking about how these conversations might serve us going forward. So without further ado, I do want to say, and I failed to say this right at the top, but thank you, Josh, thank you, staff, for all that you do for ICCR. You have worked so hard, especially during the pandemic, and we all are appreciative. So I guess I hand it over now to the powers that be to send us into breakout groups.
Okay, Mary, which room are you
Okay.
supposed to be in?
In 3.
In 3. Okay, let me put you in there now.
Thanks. I don't know what happened. Sorry.
Let's see. Sometimes, Zoom can be a little finicky. 3.
Okay, got it.
Perfect.
Hello, all. I think we are all coming back into the room. I can't really tell how many of us are back yet, but hopefully we've got the majority. I wanted to thank you all for your willingness to participate in this dialogue. I hope that you found it beneficial. I hope that you found it rich when you were discussing all parts, all aspects of it. We really have appreciated doing these exercises, and I think it solidifies what a special and unique organization that we are. So we will look forward to, as a board and with the staff, looking over these notes and collating and figuring out ways in which we can share the messages and also how we can continue the conversations going forward. So if you have further ideas, or we'd actually love to have you in the chat, reflect on how you felt about this exercise. What did you come away with? We'll capture everything in the chat as well. And thank you. So with that, I don't see him on my screen, but I know Rob's out there somewhere. Rob, I think I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you.
Are you there?
I'm here.
There you are. Okay.
Good. Thank you very much. And Asaba, could you put up the agenda one more time? Okay, so as you can see, we've had a very, very full agenda today, and thank you all for sticking with it here. We have about 10 minutes left of our meeting, and would like to spend this time with going through member announcements. So we can do this if you would like to go to the reactions and raise your hand. I am happy to call on you, and you can make your announcement to the community, or you can also put your announcement in chat using the chat function. So whatever you choose, and I will then call on you. So it looks like we have one taker, Sister Jean.
Yes, we've been working on a dialogue with Chemours, the mining company, about mining titanium along Yoki-Finoki Swamp. And I was contacted by a woman in North Carolina because they have been affected by pollution in their waterways from both DuPont. Chemours is a spinoff of DuPont, so both from DuPont and Chemours. And we can't tackle this issue alone because we just don't have the expertise and bandwidth. So if anyone owns Chemours stock, if they could let me know if they would be interested, I would really appreciate that.
Thanks, Sister Jean. Anna.
Just announcing that SRIC, Socially Responsible Investment Coalition, is 40 this year, excuse me, and we are celebrating. We're celebrating in person and virtually, looking at our past, our future, and we're calling our event Still Looking for the Promised Land. So maybe you can join us, but we'll be celebrating the end of April, and just thank you all for your support through all these years, 40 years.
Congratulations, Anna. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Big deal, Anna. Congrats.
Eric.
Yes, and I will be posting this pretty soon, but I am doing work with the U.S. Conference Board and the International Organization for Standardization on how to evaluate equity around racial justice and diversity, as well as applying standards. And I look forward to sharing that work with the membership as the International Organization for Standardization has been advising the SEC on the human capital disclosures, which includes diversity. And we're working with an organization that also will be providing audits through the International Organization for Standardization, and we're also working with the NAACP. So look forward to sharing that work with the membership.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you for sharing about that important work. Are there other announcements? Oh, yeah, Frank.
I just want to say that Seventh Generation Interfaith will be hiring another shareholder advocate manager in the coming, well, this coming months. And so if anyone knows of any young and old people interested in this work and would like to learn and join our community, please let me know, me or Chris or Natalie. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Other announcements? Oh, yes, Lila.
Hi, everyone. And thanks, Rob. I just wanted to announce, you might have seen it in some of the past newsletters, but there is a new member-led working group on systemic stewardship. And the goals of the working group are really to explore systemic stewardship, the business case that's emerging for mainstream investors to really support what a lot of ICCR members have been doing for quite some time, explore the business case for some of the issues that ICCR members have been focused on, to share opportunities to collaborate, requests for help, tools and resources. If you're trying to make the case for system level investing internally within your institution, if you're working on a particular campaign, it's a great place to spend time with others. We do have a great emerging group and you're welcome to join. I'll put my info in the chat if you're interested in joining. And then we also have a session later today on systemic stewardship that the working group is curating.
Thank you. Bruce.
Thank you. I wanted to, there's been work going on for some years with Chevron in relation to a variety of environmental and human rights issues, particularly centered around Ecuador. But this is kind of a banner year, and a large coalition of nonprofits and groups are working. So I wanted to alert everybody to that. And in big part, it's because of the release of a significant study that Dr. Nan Greer conducted, looking at all of the legal initiatives that are going against Chevron in all of the countries around the world. And she has collected $50.05 billion, not collected, but reported on that amount of liability that's actually in the process of being litigated against Chevron. It's a monumental work, kind of a new approach to assessing corporate liability and also corporate impact in the world. And so highlight that it was the subject of a House Oversight Committee hearing earlier this year, and there's a lot going on. So keep your eyes open. We seek collaboration and certainly seek your voting support when the time comes in May. Thank you.
Thank you. Seamus.
Only to just, I know that most are familiar with the fact that the USCCB released some new guidelines. I think the ongoing conversation is creating much confusion, hopefully much discussion on how people are wrestling with what's in there. And if you're not, relax. But if you are, it may be a good point at some. It would be helpful, I think, if people are coming up with some ways to address or to respond to it on behalf of their own organizations or their own clients, et cetera, to share those, I think would be really important, because this is going to go on for a number more months, I'd say.
Thank you. Lisa, did you have your hand up? Nope. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Looks like there are a few announcements in the chat, just to draw your attention to that. Any other announcements that anyone feels led to share with the community? Okay, well, oh, Courtney, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to give Sister Ethel Howley a quick shout out for her great work on Dow. We got them to agree to conduct a racial equity audit. And so kudos to her leadership on that.
Thank you. Congrats. Yeah, Tim, then Simon.
Yeah, I think we celebrated the fact that ICCR came out with a very good briefing and exceptionally important book that Julie created of all our shareholder resolutions. And then following that on March 17th, As You Sow did a proxy preview. And it looks like there have been close to 550 resolutions filed this year. Maybe over 100 withdrawals and agreements we're celebrating. And some that just boggle the mind, like Jack in the Box got a resolution that got a 95% vote, which management opposed, and it still got 95%. So sometimes it are just mouths or agape at some of the votes that we see coming in. There were a couple at Apple, for example, and at Disney that got a majority vote too already this season. So we're celebrating.
Thank you, Tim. All right, 3 more in the queue. I think we'll have to stop it there, but if you have other announcements, please use the chat function. So Simon, you're up.
Yeah, speaking of our good friends at Chevron, there's a very significant vote coming up as well on another resolution there, which asks Chevron to adopt a policy of not doing business with governments engaged in genocide or crimes against humanity. And it's especially notable since the US just issued a determination that the Myanmar military has indeed engaged in genocide against the Rohingya in Myanmar. So this resolution is designed to make sure that the company doesn't hurt shareholder value by doing business with further governments engaged in these kinds of mass atrocities, and using their involvement in Burma as a case in point as to why this policy is important. So look out for that. We're looking to do a exempt solicitation, reaching out to shareholders to vote in favor of the resolution. And as always, we're interested in finding investors in, say, Cloudflare and other companies where we could do similar resolutions next year.
Thank you. Barbara.
Probably a little out of order here, but for a light moment, we're celebrating St. Peter's University, and a number of people on the phone have gone bananas over it, particularly Courtney, who is a friend of the coach, and she was female athlete of the year in basketball in high school in her day, and he was the male athlete. I just think you forgot Jersey City here, and we're now on the map. Thanks.
Hey, I think the Peacock stole up this season, so it broke a lot of hearts in Kentucky. But anyway, I'm sorry, Pat Zarega.
Yeah, as Tim mentioned, the proxy book, I wanted to mention the 50-year different thematic pieces that Susanna put together. For any of you that also have to do newsletters or articles, they're very helpful. And somebody from staff will have to tell me exactly where to find it, or drop in the track where to find it online. But there's several different ones to pull out for the anniversary.
Okay, thank you all very much. This concludes our members meeting. We look forward to getting back together with you all in our members meeting at our next conference in September. We're really excited for this week ahead of us, and the great conference material. Really encourage, again, everyone to attend as much as they can, and please, if you haven't done it, register for the individual sessions, and look forward to celebrating with you all as well on Thursday night. Just wish everybody well, and we'll see you around the conference.
Great meeting. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.